This is a video that has been recorded based on the request made by few of your classmates. So the structure of the video will be, I'll be just explaining what was discussed in the class in a very short nutshell, the structure of today's class. Then it will be followed by the AA recap, and finally it will end with the probable angles in which questions can be asked. Let's see how this video goes. If you are okay with this format, we will continue with this. So today we had actually seen the key definitions with respect to that of what is a will. We saw that the intention of the owner of the property about how the property should be distributed after his death, that is what a will is. We had also seen that instead of revoking the entire will and writing a new will, we could modify certain portions of the will or add, subtract certain areas into the will with the help of a codicil. Then we also saw the basic differences between what is a will and what is a codicil and when what is made use of. We had also discussed that in a will, the testator can also appoint an executor to the property. He becomes the legal representative of the property after the death of the testator. And he gets to execute whatever is written in the will. Therefore, he is called as the executor. We also saw that in cases where there is no will, the court can appoint an administrator. And in cases where there is a will, if the executor has not been appointed or the executor who has been appointed is for some reason not ready or not capable of becoming an executor, in all these circumstances, the court can appoint an uh, administrator, and the court will grant letters of administration in such circumstance. So the key difference between that of an executor and an administrator is who appoints the particular person. We also saw that the executor, as soon as the testator is dead, he has to validate the will. The probity of the will is checked. That is why it is called as probate. And after proving the validity of the will, he will be getting a probate, which is a probate certificate, which is nothing but the certified copy of the will plus the grant that has been given by the court with the seal of the court and the signature of the authority. All this put together is called as probate. Only with the help of the probate, the will can be executed, and whatever is written in the will be executed by the executor, or in certain rare circumstances, the administrator who has been appointed by the court. Now let us move on to the AA recap of the entire session, after which I will conclude by telling you the angles in which a question can be asked in the end semester exam.
All right, class, let's talk about the Indian Succession Act of 1925. Now, I know it can seem like a bit of a beast, but trust me, its core concepts are actually pretty logical once you break them down. In this explainer, we're going to do just that, giving you a clear, solid foundation that's going to be crucial for your exams. So what's the big picture here? Well, before this act, succession law in India was, well, a mess. It was a real patchwork of different rules and regulations. The whole point of the 1925 Act was to bring all of that together, to consolidate it into a single, comprehensive framework. So here's our game plan. We'll start with the Act itself, then look at the most important document, the will. From there, we'll meet the key players, the executor and administrator, and finally, we'll cover how a will is amended and how it gets its official stamp of approval. Let's get started. First up, the Act itself. To really understand it, we have to ask a simple question. Why was this thing even needed in the first place? And the answer is right there, smack in the preamble. The key word here is consolidation. Just think about it. Before 1925, you had all these separate laws just floating around, like the Hindu Wills Act and the Probate and Administration Act. This legislation was designed to basically sweep them all under one roof, creating a much clearer, unified system. All right, with the purpose of the Act established, let's turn to the absolute centerpiece of all of this, the will. Pretty much everything we're about to discuss revolves around this single document. Okay, let's really unpack this definition because every single part of it is critical for your exams. First, it's a legal declaration. That means it has formal legal weight. Second, it captures the testator's intention. Third, it's specifically about their property. And fourth, and this is the part you can't forget, it does absolutely nothing until after their death. These four elements are the pillars of what makes a will, legally speaking, a will. Okay, so we have the document. Now, who actually makes it all happen? This brings us to two key roles, the executor and the administrator. They're the ones on the ground, responsible for carrying out the will's instructions, or, managing things when there isn't a will. The most important phrase right here is by the testator's appointment. I mean, that tells you everything. The executor is handpicked by the person who made the will. Their power, their authority, it all flows directly from that document. Think of them as the testator's chosen representative. Now, in stark contrast, an administrator is appointed by competent authority, which for our purposes means the court. And notice when this happens, specifically when there is no executor. The court has to step in to make sure the estate is managed. And this just brilliantly illustrates the administrator's role as a kind of legal backstop. The law anticipates that things can go wrong. Maybe the person died intestate without a will, or the named executor is unable or unwilling to serve. The administrator ensures the estate doesn't just fall into some legal black hole. If you remember one thing about these two roles, let it be the source of their authority. This is the critical distinction. An executor's power comes directly from the will. It's a personal appointment. But an administrator's power, that comes from the court through a formal document called the Letters of Administration. One is a personal trust, the other is a judicial appointment. That's the fundamental difference you have to know. So we have the will and the people to execute it. But what happens if circumstances change and the testator wants to make a small adjustment? Do they have to go and rewrite the entire thing? Well, the answer is no. And that brings us to the codicil. Now, notice this crucial phrase here, deemed to form part of the will. This means a codicil isn't really a separate document in the eyes of the law. It's an official add-on, legally attached to the original. Think of it as an amendment or maybe an official PS to the main will, not a brand new letter. And this definition from Halsbury really just reinforces that a codicil's function is purely one of modification. It can add a new clause, it can change an existing one, or it can even revoke specific parts of the will, all while leaving the rest of the original document completely intact. We have one final, critical piece of the puzzle. A will is just a piece of paper until it's been officially validated. So how does it get the court's stamp of approval? Well, that process is called probate. The key idea here is that probate is the official proof. It's the court's way of saying, yes, we've reviewed this, and it is the valid final will of the deceased. That certified court-sealed copy is the golden ticket. It's what gives the executor the undisputed legal power to actually do their job. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. Let's pull it all together in a quick review to make sure these key distinctions are absolutely crystal clear for you. This table is a concise summary for your revision. Seriously, use it as a quick reference tool. Notice the emphasis we've put on who appoints and who grants authority, by the testator versus by the court. That's often where marks are won or lost. So, to leave you with a final thought, how does the entire dynamic of administering an estate change the moment an executor is out of the picture? Thinking about that question, that shift from personal appointment to court intervention, is how you move from just memorizing terms to truly understanding the logic of the law. Keep that in mind as you study. Good luck.
Few of the models in which you can expect a question is a 7-mark question with respect to that of the duties of the estater, wherein these are the key points that you should have to compulsorily highlight in your answer paper. Then questions of 5-mark nature regarding what is a will and what is a codicil. With help of case laws, you have to explain what's the role that is being played by a codicil. You will also have to explain if a 5-mark question is asked about role of an estate manager. He falls under two categories, the executor and that of the administrator. When an executor can be expressed, when he can be implied, with help of case laws, you have to explain this area. Then question can, in rare circumstance, can also be focusing upon probate, how to obtain a copy of probate, and the impact of obtaining a probate. So what are the legal assumptions and what are the conclusive proofs that comes when a probate is being granted? This can be asked as a 7-mark question. So these are the angles in which questions can be asked. If you have any doubts, please write them in the GCR or here in the YouTube or even in our classroom. Thank you, guys.